a chance for a conversation with him, and you know how much we love him with the baseball. Let's get a little thought process as far as he is concerned on this busy 8th day of August. Steve, welcome. How are you today, pal? Okay?
Doing great, Chris. Good to be with you.
Nice to have you with us. Let's do Yankees-Red Sox first. Ramifications in your eyes of that 4-game series in Fenway this past weekend.
Well, I think it's going to be nearly impossible for the Yankees to make up that ground right now. I mean, listen, sitting 9 games behind. And yes, the Red Sox schedule is more difficult moving forward. The Yankees have played the Astros and the Indians the way that the Red Sox have not, but it doesn't feel like it's going to matter. You're talking about, how about this? The last time the Red Sox were the first team to get to 80 wins in a season, they had 51 losses to go along with their 80 wins. They're 80-34. On pace for 113, 114 wins right now. And it sure feels like they put the nail in the coffin in that they're the division winner and that the Yankees are the wild card team. Now, listen, a lot can happen. We saw the Dodgers last year lose 16 out of 17 in late August, September. And so, these things can't turn. But it doesn't feel like that's going to happen right now for Boston, especially, Sale went on the DL. Sounds like he's coming off. Everything's going to be okay. Even on a day where, listen, Kimbrel's blown 4 of the last, or given up runs in 4 of his last 5 appearances, and they won all 4 games. They just seem to have everything going on right now.
All right. Is there anything last week? There's a couple things I have with Boone. Did you have a couple of issues the way Boone, in his first big Yankee-Red Sox series, with a little pressure on him, were there any things about Boone you did not like from last weekend's perspective?
Yeah, I thought he left Holder in way too long in that situation. He took CeCe out and left Holder in, And I mean, I was sitting watching it with Kathleen, my wife, and she's like, "How long are they going to leave this kid in?" I'm like, "I don't know." And then Pierce hit the home run, and then and it felt like the moment was too big for him. Right, the runners were taking off when he was in the stretch. He had no idea what was going on, and it felt like in that time and place he needed to regroup, and it was a learning opportunity, but he wasn't ready for it. So I certainly had an issue with that, and thought they should have moved earlier. How did you see that?
Well, I wouldn't have taken Sabathia out of the game because he had Bradley up next, leading off the 4th, and Bradley was 7 of 37 lifetime against Sabathia. Yes, he was very
77 pitches and that, but I don't disagree. I thought a quick hook on CeCe, and it spoke to the confidence he had in his bullpen. But when Holder comes in and spits the bit right away, then, Holder's the guy they go to in the extra innings as well after they blew the lead there as well. So they had a number of different things that I thought didn't quite play out well.
100% right. And I tell you, too, Steve, and the Yankees do this more than anybody else, and I think it killed Dave Roberts last year in games 2 and 5. His bullpen wore out. When you continually want to go to your bullpen and go out there and get reliever after reliever after reliever, in Boone's case, Thursday night, beginning in the 4th inning, eventually you're going to find somebody who doesn't have it. I mean, that's just all there is to it. You bring so many guys in, you're not going to go 6 for 6. And I think that is the one negative of having such a bullpen-oriented team and not wanting to let your starters pitch, is that, okay, the starter gives you 4 innings, you get him out, and then you go 5 relievers in a row. There's a chance that one of those relievers is going to stink up the joint, and you're going to lose the game. And that's kind of what happened to the Yankees here at times this past weekend. How about that?
Yeah, no doubt. And so they burned through their bullpen in that game, and then they burned Sessa, their Saturday starter, who's going to start for Jay Happ. So he can't go. So they got to bring the Adams kid up. And so they were chasing the bullpen the rest of the weekend. And just couldn't get there. And Chapman walking the bases loaded. I mean, part of it is his guys got to step up a little bit and deliver. And they just felt like the Yankees, that they were tight, that the Red Sox feel so loose and so confident. And it doesn't matter the score, that they still feel like that they're just going to go out and play every inning as an individual inning and try to win that inning. And even though they lost the one before, 2 innings before that, they don't care. They're just going to keep playing it, and that offense can erupt at any time. There's been moments earlier this year that I thought Boone bunted in a situation. I don't know why he would do that. He bunted over and, ended up having Stanton walked and didn't. It got bad matchups the rest of it. The day that Sanchez groin issue became a problem, the hustling was an issue again there. So, look, a lot of it's a learning curve, and for Aaron Boone, this was,
this is what you get. This is what you get. You know, you got rid of Girardi, who was making $4 or $5 million a year. You bring in a manager, you pay him $4 million for 3 years that, you know, has never managed a game anywhere in his life. And you bring him into New York with the Yankees with a lot of expectations. At least Cora had worked with Hinch and had been in baseball in a coaching capacity for a while. And this is what sometimes you end up with, because a lot of GMs today, Stephen, you know this better than anybody, they want the manager for the 162. The problem is the manager becomes vital and far more significant when you get to big games in September and October, and that's when they can lose you series. And I think maybe the Yankees learn a little something about that with Boone this past weekend. How about that for a second?
Yeah, I think it's possible. I think the other thing is, though, that what we've seen with October baseball, with this new way of managing bullpens, is with all of the scheduled off days, it's a little bit different than making it your eighth game in 8 days, and you've kind of burned through your bullpen at a run. You know, in the playoffs, they're going to have an off day or two. Then they're going to play 2 and have an off day. They're going to play 2 and have an off day and play 1, or they're going to play, 2, then 3, then 2 with off days in between. And that's where the bullpen usage has become more in vogue, and that you can go to the bullpen early because you've got the off days built in, that you know that there's going to be some rest on the schedule, that your pitchers, effectively, remember back when Jabba Chamberlain broke in, they had the Jabba rules, right? Jabba would pitch an inning, have a day off. Pitch 2 innings, have 2 days off. And so every time he pitched, he was at full strength. And everybody had this expectation, boy, this guy's great. Well, nobody pitches like that. So the next year when they put him into a different sort of a situation where he didn't have that same sort of structure and rules to it, he wasn't the same guy. The playoffs, the regular season's kind of like that, right? You got, like, the Braves are in this midst of 22 games in 20 days right now. They're going to go through it. They're going to be burned. But when you get to October, you do have some additional rest. And so I think Boone kind of is managing now in a way that might be more apt to be appropriate come October, but I think he doesn't trust his starting rotation.
Yeah, no, he does not. Now, right now, the Yankees are going to be in that wild card game. Let's say they get out of it, and they play the Yankees in a 5-game series, and they are healthy, but only Severino once. You think the Red Sox are much better than the Yankees? You think the Yankees in a short series could beat the Red Sox without home field? How would you match up? I know it's 2 months away, but how would you match up these two teams in a 5-game series in a divisional round in the American League?
Yeah, I think you would have to, give the Red Sox the advantage. I don't think there's any question about that. But, I mean, the Yankees absolutely can win a series against the Boston Red Sox. There's no question that they can do that. Now, without Severino, they're going to have to rely upon the bullpen. They're going to have to pitch better than they did in that series. They'll have Judge back in the lineup. That, maybe for them getting, some margin for error on the board early in the game is a factor. It's just this. Doesn't it feel like every time you watch them, like I've watched them against the Blue Jays here the last couple of days, every time there's a key situation in a game, JD Martinez is up to bat. Like, I don't know how it happens, but he's always the guy. Mookie Betts and JD Martinez are always the guys coming up to be able to come up in those clutch situations, and they don't fail. Their approaches at the plate, and I know good pitching can still, and I believe it, good pitching can beat good hitting. But, boy, they've got Benintendi is a quality at bat. I mean, Bogarts is a good at bat. And obviously Betts and JD Martinez are, in the top 3 or 4 in MVP voting in the American League right now, candidates. So, they're so good. Now, it doesn't mean with one swing of the bat the Yankees can't get separation. Get a couple guys on, a ground ball, seeing through the hole, a walk, and a 3-run shot. But it feels like that the Red Sox have the ability to win more different kinds of games than the Yankees do. Like, the Yankees don't have as many different ways of doing it as do the Red Sox. And in a close game, the Red Sox can manufacture in a way that I don't know necessarily that the Yankees can.
Interesting. Okay, let's do the wild card in the American League for a second. I think Seattle right now is feeling the pinch. Not playing well, losing a rubber game today, badly in Texas. They are a couple games back of the A's, a franchise that has not made the playoffs in eons. They're going to have to figure out Cano when he gets back here in a couple days. They don't have dominating pitching. Their hero is going to be out of the rotation in Hernandez. I think Seattle is in big trouble right now, falling by the wayside in the American League West. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean they're not playing very good baseball, that's for sure. And their starting pitching is so suspect that like I thought, boy, I know Jerry DiPoto made a ton of moves, and how many moves can a guy make before he runs out of resources to make another move? But I thought they could have used another starting pitcher, and Felix. God bless him. He's going to give you the effort. I mean, the Beltre Felix thing's fun and everything yesterday. He just doesn't have the stuff. 3 home runs, I think, 4 or 5 walks in the game. And he just doesn't have the ability to get swings and misses anymore. So I think that you're right. I think they're in some trouble. Now, Oakland, maybe the Oakland starting pitching's not great either.
No, bad.
And yet, but their offense is better than Seattle. They create more margin. If they can score early, they take some of the pressure off that. The Mariners, and I watched your High Heat show today. You had sort of the graphic up of the Mariners' offensive stats, and, they're kind of middle of the pack offensively. They're not a dynamic offensive team. They can hit some home runs, and Nelson Cruz, 30 homers again for the 4th consecutive year. I mean, he is unbelievable at his age. And Seager looks like he's heating up a little bit, but a couple errors yesterday, kicking the ball around. And Haniger cooled off a bit, but they can score and they can manufacture and hit for power. They just don't do it as much as some of the other slugging teams. So it puts more pressure on that bullpen. And for Scott Service, he has to shorten the game. Now, he's got a lot of weapons in the pen. He does. He's got a lot of different go-to guys out there. But, if you don't like what Aaron Boone's doing, Scott Service is going to have to manage that way and then some in order for them to win.
All right, now, the Indians are going to win this division by 100 games, and we're not going to know how good they are until we see them in a best-of-5 against the Astros there in October. Now, they have big pitching. I'll assume their bullpen will get straightened out, but they are only 10, 12 games over 500. They really haven't been tested all year, have not played well against the Yankees, so really have not been tested all year. In your eyes, is Cleveland still very dangerous in a best-of-5 series and in the American League playoffs?
Very dangerous. I think very dangerous. That they've got the starting pitching in the matchup. Where they bobbled all season long was their bullpen. Well, they kind of fixed that right now. It's a lot like the Washington Nationals last year, right? They were bobbling all year, but they weren't really threatened in the division. The Mets weren't very good, and the Phillies and Braves were just in the rebuilding process, and the Marlins weren't good. So, they were able to kind of, get through it. Still, they lost games. It wasn't great. Then all of a sudden, they put their bullpen together. That's what Cleveland did. Miller's back. He's not quite right yet, but they've got time to get him right. And Brad Hand is a real weapon out there. They've got different looks with Simber, and Oliver Perez has got good numbers against lefties, and I don't trust him in a huge spot, but as the first lefty, I think he's a really valuable guy, Oliver Perez. So, they've got balance and depth in the bullpen. They've got impact in the rotation with Kluber, Carrasco, and Bauer. And honestly, you start looking at teams, really the Astros are the only other team maybe in the playoffs that can line up 3 guys like Kluber, Carrasco, and Bauer. And so they're a pretty strong team with the pitching side of it. And when you have Lindor and Ramirez, Encarnacion is a threat to hit one out at all times, and Brantley gives you as quality at bat as you're going to get out there. And then you can get some sneaky stuff from Leonis Martin and Kipnis. So, yeah, I think Cleveland is a legitimate threat. It would not shock me if they represent the American League in the World Series.
Yeah, I could see it. I don't think they will, but
I don't think they will either. But it would not shock me because they have the makings. I think they're better constructed for that short series.
Yeah, I agree.
Than everybody other than maybe the Astros.
Yeah, I wonder about their offense in a tight game if they can generate anything, but I do understand that. All right, how about I thought the Braves won a very big game in that second game last night against the Nationals. The Nationals, who are right now trying to get back in the mix, they won the first game. Atlanta does not go to Washington again this year, so they got to make up and make some hay against the Braves when they have a chance to. They got Scherzer in game 2, and the Braves figured out a way to get a couple of runs in the 9th inning to win the game 3-1. The Nationals cannot afford too many more of those against Phillies or Atlanta, and I thought that was a big loss for the Nationals in Game 2 last night for an August 10th day, or whatever the date is. What's your take on that?
Completely agree. I thought that on the day, listen, you win the first one, you got Scherzer on the mound, and he's shutting them down. You got to win that game. And they didn't. And so I think that you look at what the Braves and Phillies are doing, holding off the Nationals. I mean, we came out of the All-Star break with the Nationals 6.5 games out. They're 6 out right now. They've played better, but there's no fade right now for the Braves and Phillies. And the thing for the Braves, is the 22 games in 20 days. And I remember talking to Brian Snitker over the All-Star break, and he said, you know what? The games for the All-Star break are practice. The real games start after the All-Star break. And he's right. You get to August, you start grinding it out. You've got the teams that are in the race playing head-to-head some. You're going to have to try to match up with them. They're showing me something. Both Philadelphia and Atlanta are showing me something, holding off the Nationals still at 6 games. Washington, they're playing a little bit better, but look, you're still looking at winning only 4 of your last 10. It feels better than that. Like Harper's turned it up a little bit, but they're not even at 500 right now. But I agree. I think Atlanta's win yesterday was terrific for them.
Yeah, very important. All right, how do you want to dictate the NL West right now? Dodgers, 4 games in Colorado. Rockies are not playing well after playing great for a long period of time. Arizona's up and down even at home. I think 88-90 will win the division. I guess you still have to take L.A. What's your take on that for a sec?
Yeah, I think you still have to take L.A. The moves that they made with Dozier and Machado and now Turner back in there, they've got the length and depth of their lineup is pretty significant right now. I still don't love the bridge from the starting pitching to the end of the game, but it seems to be enough right now. They grind out every inning and every at bat. They come back in games. They've gotten some pretty good starting pitching as well. Hills looked all right. Kershaw looks better right now. Kershaw looks a lot better right now. So I give the edge to the Dodgers and all of it. But Colorado, you're right. They came out like gangbusters to start the second half. It's cooled off some, but just 2.5 games out of it. And it may be one of these ones is who gets hot at the right time at the end. That they may, be able to take advantage of head-to-head matchups in the month of September and try to make up that ground.
And I'll tell you what I've learned about Colorado, Steve, and I'm going to be very careful if I'm a GM now going forward. They spent a fortune on these relievers. Davis, $52 million, he's been awful. Shaw gave him a ton of money. He hasn't been any good. Bullpen guys, for the most part, Wade Davis normally wouldn't be the case, but for the most part, a lot of these setup guys and everything else, they go year to year. One year they're great, next year they stink. So to go out there and invest a lot of money into these kind of guys for your team for the following year, to me, is a major crapshoot, and I don't think I would do that if I'm a general manager. What's your take on that for a second?
Here's the thing, is the bullpen's the area where general managers can make their most mistakes, because from year to year, you're right, it's hard to quantify the impact of innings pitched, appearances, how many times did he warm up and sit down, and the role and the uncertainty and the health and all of it that can go into the decisions. The issue is, though, that if you don't sign that guy, somebody else is going to have to pitch that inning. And for most general managers, I'd rather go with some level of predictability instead of unpredictability. Because if I don't sign the veteran, I'm just giving a kid that inning that I don't really trust, that I look at as more of more of the 17th, 18th, 19th, and 20th pitcher on my staff who's down at AAA to come up and fill in. And so they go that route with the veteran guys and hope that from among that group, they can find an answer. And while they're giving the veteran the opportunity, then you blend in some young player that you hope kind of, this is his first shot at it and he figures it out and gets hot, but listen, Colorado's really tough to know, ever if you've made the right decision with bringing a pitcher in, because they're all going to have inflated numbers. They're all going to have days that they're going to give up 3 or 4 runs because it's the nature of pitching in Colorado. What has been rather surprising is, you look at some of the starting pitching they've gotten. Freeland's got a 3.04 earned run average. Freeland's been amazing there. Anderson's got a 4 ERA, which is good considering that, he's pitching half his innings in Colorado. So they're starting pitching it, and Gray looks like he's back. Like he's figured it out. We sent him down to AAA. He's come back up again. He looks really good. Their starting pitching is actually taking some of the pressure off the bullpen, but they're kind of hit and miss offensively, which is what's a bit surprising to me, especially at Coors Field.
Right. Give the audience a feel of how hard it is for a team that's not in a pennant race to play mid-August baseball, where you're still a month and a half away from finishing up a season. You really can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. You're out of the All-Star game. You got hot weather. How hard is it for the Orioles, for the Reds, for Texas, San Diego? How hard, Miami, Mets, how hard is it for these teams to get into it here this time of the year?
Yeah, because here's the thing. What you don't want is ever for there to be a level of acceptance that we're going to lose today. And whether that's the front office, whether it's the manager, coaching staff, whether that's the players. So what you do is you set out every morning with that fresh perspective. Today's going to be a good day. We're going to go out there. We're going to find a way to win this game today. And then when something goes wrong in that game and the other team's so good that they take advantage of it every time you make a mistake, then you get your head beat in. And then you think to yourself, all right, tomorrow we're gonna pick it back up again. We're going to go out there, and you wake up the next day and say, all right, today's the day. And when that happens over and over and over again, that's sort of defeat that you feel. It's the constant punch in the gut and the disappointment. It's really hard to keep ramping it back up again because you think to yourself, how many punches in the gut can a guy take? And that's what it ends up feeling like for a team. And the managers that do the best job just keep rallying, keep energizing, keep motivating. And the idea is if you're losing, lose with getting smarter, lose with gaining information, lose with some purpose that you're at least learning about your players as to who's part of the problem, who's part of the solution, who's making adjustments. Watch how they prepare, watch how they compete. But you've got to challenge yourself every day, Chris, because you're right. I mean, it's not a lot of fun continuously getting your head beat in when you're the player, let alone watching that as a fan.
Well, especially when it's right now. I mean, you got you can't even get excited to have a vacation. You got 50 games to go yet, and you got another 3 weeks to go in a brutal month. And if you're the Kansas City Royals, that's the last thing you want to do is play a baseball game today, right?
Yeah, I think, listen, they're 34-7. They've fallen as far as the Orioles have, and people may not have noticed. I mean, they're 34-79, which is where the Orioles are. Those are the worst records in the American League and in all of baseball. And the question is, it's a race to the bottom right now between those two, because I honestly can't tell you which is the better team, or maybe more appropriately, which is the worst team. And so, I think that Kansas City is going to give more guys, young guys, opportunities to try to figure out who they are. I think that in Baltimore, they're kind of stuck sorting through some of the leftovers, which is really kind of like Andrew Cashner going out pitch tonight. Like, why bother? Like, let's go give the inning to a kid, figure out if the kid can at least, compete at the major league level. I'd rather see that, and it's more enjoyable to watch it just because it gives me some level of hope for the future.
All right, a couple things on managers. Has Jim Riggleman done enough to keep the job in Cincinnati?
Right now probably, and they're going to keep rebuilding. Although they think they're going to spend more money this year, they think they're getting closer. I'm not really convinced that they've got anything more.
No pitching.
Yeah, number 5 starters at best throughout their rotation, but they feel like they're closer than that. Now they've got some nice years out of bullpen guys, but we just talked about. That's fleeting at times. Like, I don't know what Amir Garrett's going to be next year in the bullpen. I don't know what Lorenzen's going to do next year there. I know Iglesias is pretty good, and I suspect he'll be pretty good again next year. So, yeah, I think that, probably he has. And he'll be the guy that will be the placeholder until they actually do ultimately rebuild it, and then they can have a chance to come back out and compete.
All right, the Padres have been awful. Is Andy Green in any kind of trouble?
Well, they don't have a managerial problem. They hired him to be a guy to oversee development and growth, and to deal with, kind of getting your head kicked in a little bit and trying to learn from it, pick yourself up from it. So I don't think that the mission has changed from when he was brought in. I don't think they have a managerial problem. I think they have a personnel problem. It seems like they still believe that he's got great leadership skills and communication skills. So I wouldn't be shocked if they did something just because they're 45-70 and it's hard to come back from that. But I don't get any chatter that that's going to happen.
All right, Bannister in Texas.
Yeah, I don't know. I've heard, there's been something out there. There's been a few times he's been called into the office, right, where we heard reports that he came in with John Daniels and they want him to do more of this and more of that. I tell you, I like his energy. I like his enthusiasm. His players seem to like each other. There's a level of respect for each other. There's a level of respect most of the time for the game there. So I think they're in a rebuilding mode. I don't think he's the problem. Now, to me, it would be change for the sake of change, or change for some part of the process that we don't know. But other than that, it wouldn't. My gut doesn't tell me there needs to be a change there.
Al, what's the rumors about Socha with the Angels?
Yeah, I don't. listen, there was thought at the end of the year last year they were going to talk about how much longer, and he's coming to the end of this contract. If he wants to come back, I suspect he can come back. That would be my thought, is that Artie Moreno would have him back. And for Socha, he's, and Terry Francona, I think, said it because they were playing each other when this all kind of broke. As a manager, the one thing you ask yourself is my message still fresh to this group of players? And it doesn't mean that I can't still be fresh for a different group of players. You just wonder if one place for a long time, 19 years, whether that's enough. And so, I think they're going to reevaluate it at the end. It wouldn't surprise me if he steps down and they go in a different direction. It would surprise me if this is a straight out not rehiring him if he does want to come back.
And one last thing, Steve, is there a manager right now, St. Louis, maybe, I guess Callaway? Is there a manager right now in the next 50 games who's managing for his life?
Well, I think the one guy, there were reports out yesterday, Jeff Blair in Toronto wrote it, and then Ken Rosenthal followed it up, that John Gibbons, that in Toronto, that they may be moving away from Gibbons. Now,
they just gave him an extension a year and a half ago, for crying out loud.
He's got a contract for 2019 and an option for 2020. And, I think that all along there's a belief that if they were going to try to win now, that he was the guy. If they're going to rebuild, that he might not be a rebuilding manager. I personally don't see paying two managers for a year you're going to rebuild where you're not likely going to compete with the Red Sox.
Yeah, what's the point? You're going to pay Gibbons and hire somebody else and pay him. That doesn't make any sense.
Unless they believe that there's a guy, that they think the next Alex Cora's out there, that Torey Lovello's out there, that they've got an analytics guy they want to bring in to start to create this culture and everybody grow together. But there's chatter that I hadn't heard until yesterday. There were a couple reports on it that they and look, Gibbons has always said all along, he's got family back to San Antonio. He's not a lifer at this. He's had a good run, second time around there, that there may be a shelf life from his perspective, too. So my sense is that if he's not back, it's probably mutual, and it just doesn't make sense to let him go. If you're going to rebuild next year anyways, why pay two managers?
Right. Okay. Right now, the World Series participants will be who? Red Sox and against who?
Well, I'm not going Red Sox. I'm going Houston. And
so you're going to still take Houston and the Cubs? You can still take that one?
Yeah, I'm taking Houston and the Cubs still. I am. I'm going to stick with that one. I think Houston starting pitching can ramp up. I get the end of the game. They've got some things to figure out there a little bit, but they still got all the players involved. They need McCullers to come back. Listen, they're hurting right now. Springer with the thumb, Altuve, and Correa, they're hurting. Davinsky, McCann, they're middle of field, no catcher, no second baseman, no shortstop, no center fielder. No starter, McCullers, no key reliever, Davinsky. They've got a lot going on, but they're still going to hold on, win the division. They're going to get healthy right at the right time. They're going to get hot at the right time. And so I think they're going to be a really tough out again this year. And I think the Cubs, Hamels has really stepped in and done a nice job, better than I thought he would have. And I think they'll get themselves right. They're going to be in the thick of it in the National League. I think the National League is going to be, listen, both are going to be great. The American League, I think, has much stronger teams, but both playoffs, I think, whatever we have lined up.
Yeah, because the National League, any of them could win.
Yep.
And the American League, those four top teams are very good. Forget the idiots. Those top three teams are very good. So you have a good common. Now, the World Series might stink because the American League team might kill somebody in the World Series. That's possible. Because I don't think the Cubs or the Dodgers are going to be able to handle the Red Sox, Yankees, or the Astros myself. I think that's an ugly series. I think the drama will be in the championship series and before in both leagues. I think the World Series will be a bust. But I think until that time, you're going to have a lot of fun. I agree with that, 100%.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fun. I'm not counting out on the World Series just yet either, because you know how that can go. It's not always the best team.
I agree, though. On paper, Steve, the American League team is going to be a huge favorite.
Yes,
a huge favorite.
I agree.
All right, good job, Steve. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, buddy. You got it, Chris.
Very good.